Good morning. Good morning, one and all. How are you doing this fine day? Happy new month, I guess. Apologies if you're watching over on Instagram and you're making comments. I can't see them. I know I can see that I'm broadcasting there, but I can't see the comments. So my apologies for that. So if you are commenting or if you've got something really important to say, please can I ask you to hop over to Facebook, to LinkedIn, or to YouTube and make your comments there because I can't actually see them. Now, I do need to take my name off the screen because I think we're at the point now where everybody knows who everybody is. Let me take that away. Here we are. That looks much smarter. Now, good morning to Gary Muirhead. Morning, Gary. Hope you're fit and well, my friend. Dan Cullen is here as well. Just in time, he says. Footy is here as well. Chris Ford says, good morning, gang. Are we in the Christmas spirit yet? Bar humbug? Well, I kind of am. And I'll come back to that in just a moment. Footy says, I drove all the way to work today, get there, signing off. Two guys haven't turned in, so you're going to have to go home. Might see you tomorrow. We're not sure yet. I didn't get paid even going in today. No petrol money either. The joys of working in construction. We'll come back to that in a bit later on. And Ken Hatter is here as well. Morning, Ken. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So, yes, Christmas spirit. It is a new month, and we will be beginning a new month of the Mystery Machine. But we've also got a new book out. Yeah, A Sight for Sore Eyes, Volume 3, dropped this morning. If you'd like to, well, let me explain. There are two ways of acquiring said book. If you are a member of our Buy Me a Coffee club, then you get it free of charge. If you're not, you'll have to pay for it. But you can pick up a copy right there in the. Oh, that's not showing the link, which is very, very annoying indeed. Or is it? Bear with me. No, it's not. Let's have a look. Where are we? There we are. I'll put it in the chat now. Sight for Sore Eyes, Volume 3. You can buy it right now. It's basically a collection of what I believe to be my very best writing of the past year, maybe 14 months or so. It's only available there. I'm not going to. It's only a PDF. It's an electronic book, so it won't be available elsewhere. It's not going on Amazon or anything like that. So yeah, if you are already a member, you get it free of charge. If not, then 10 quid, please. Alex Latham has just joined us. Now, I do have buttons for these people. Alex Latham has just joined us. Good morning, Alex. Where is Alex's button? It's there. There's Alex's button, and Jim Turner is here as well, and there is Jim's button as well. Good morning, everyone. There you are. I'll put it in the chat now. Sight for Sore Eyes says Footy. Thank you very much indeed for that, Footy. It is called Sight for Sore Eyes, Volume 3. I did the first one back in 2016. Did another one probably 2 years ago. And there's a new one. Yeah, brand spanking new. Yeah. And just to let you know, if you go to the same website, which is buymeacoffee.com, there's other stuff there as well. There's the ebook that we did back in Halloween time, Gravedigger. We've got the Jumbo book, which is an exclusive kind of story of the Jumbo excavator. We've also got Echoes of Dust, work of fiction. Speaking of works of fiction, I'll be back with some of that at the end of the show. But before we do all of that, I do want to show you a thing, which is this. That's the wrong layout. That's a better one. I hope you can read that. The ISG administrators. Apparently, the company went down owing 1.1 billion with a B, and the ISG administrators have currently found 35 million with an M. Big shortfall. Yeah. So, if you'd like to discuss that at the end of the show, I'd love to hear from you. ISG administrators have warned that they will only recover 35 million from cash and assets out of the rubble left behind from the collapse of the 2.2 billion pound turnover contractor. It means there will be no cash for trade contractors owed at least 308 million pounds. Yeah. There's more stuff to discuss a bit later in the show. including, I will start, I promise the show will start properly in a moment. And I will explain this a little bit further a bit later on. But I wrote a morning monologue about 2 weeks ago, read it back to myself and thought, do you know what? Even by my sometimes fairly bleak standards, this is probably a bit too dark for public consumption. But I'm doing it today. I've decided that, sod the fallout. I'm going to do it. Gary Muirhead says, any plans for a kid's Christmas book? The Christmas book is written. I am trying to get it done as an audio book so that people can just download it and play it to their children. I'm going to be working on that probably later this week, but it's getting there very, very closely. Mick says, see Graham put a post up on Facebook. Got a feeling he's in for some stick for a number of certain middle-aged women. Dan Cullen says, got to go. Have a fantastic day and a great show. Thank you very much indeed. But Mick is here. Good morning to you, Mick. Dan Cullen says, 2 guys failed a drug test this morning, even knowing on Friday test being done. Wow. Okay. So yes, I did promise that the show will begin any moment, and that moment has arrived. I'm going to roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. Just as soon as I can find the correct button, which is this one. What have we got here? Bear in mind. Mick says, Dan, just to let you know, the son-in-law will not be back on his bike, but he is okay. Not sure what that's all about, but yeah, people talk amongst themselves. Gary Muirhead, interesting question. Did any of the ISG directors work previously for Carillion? I wonder if they did. I don't know if I could find that out, but I'll ask around and see if anybody knows. So yes, it is Monday. Monday. It's not the first of the month, so I'm not going to do the whole pinch and a punch thing, but it is Monday, the 2nd of December. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, there's a big bang, Doon the Toon. Weidemann sparks interest with its electric loaders. We're ringing down the years with the history of Bell. That's a full 9-minute epic, that one. And John Deere marks 50 years in the skid steer business. Plus, as I've already kind of warned, I will be delivering a morning monologue this morning that I wrote a few weeks ago, but I considered it way too dark for public consumption. Till now. Probably won't put you in a good mood. Probably won't win me any popularity contests. But it's worth saying. So, before we get to all of that, we do have the small matter of today's mystery machine to decipher. Now, if Dan Cullen has actually left, somebody could actually get in an early lead over our reigning champion. I'll be back after this. Yeah, mystery machine. Now, we're going back a little bit on this one, and there you are. That is what you've got to work with. Most definitely not a current machine. So those of a certain vintage might be able to spot it. If you've got any clues on that, we're looking for both a make and a model, if you would be so kind. Mick says, sorry, mate, meant to send that private future son-in-law got hit by an Uber driver the other day on his Harley. Well, I hope son-in-law's okay. I hope the Harley's okay as well. I really hope the Harley's okay. Bit of a closet Harley fan. Nowhere near cool enough to ride one, but I am a closet biker. Very deeply closeted, it has to be said. So yes, mystery machine, there you are. That's what you've got to work with. While you're figuring that out, I'm going to very quickly remind you of our question of the day. Yeah. Question of the day is this. What is your favourite cake? Cake. Imagine, if you will, you're walking down the high street, you come across a baker or a patisserie. You look through the window and every type of baked good your heart desire is laid out on display, but you can choose only one. What are you having? Now, personally, I'd find it very, very hard to get past the bread pudding. Do love me a bit of bread pudding. Not sure if it's actually considered a cake in its truest sense, but it's a baked good nonetheless. However, if they have one of those, those strawberry tarts with a jelly glaze on top, that's for me. Can't do baked tarts, don't like the taste, don't like anything with marzipan in it. All of those are out of the picture for me. But what about you? What would be your go-to cake du jour? Dan Cullen says he's off and see you all tomorrow. All going well. Good to hear. So going back to the mystery machine, we've got Chris Ford going for the JCB 805B. It is not Gary Muirhead going for the E215 from New Holland. Nope. Mick says, thanks, Mark. He's okay, but the bike is man good. Footy says, like a lardy cake and an Eccles cake. They're my favourite. Ken Hatcher is going for chocolate cake on the question of the day. And I'm sure somebody said, Gary Muirhead go for carrot cake. Never got the idea of carrot cake. I'm not much of a one for butter icing. And they do seem to have butter icing on them. Yeah, not for me at all. So no good guesses or no correct guesses yet. There is a bit more of the mystery machine, and we'll be back. We'll go back to that at some point in the not too distant future. But we do need to start the show. Yeah, while some of us were sat around with their feet up on the sofa reading the newspaper this weekend, the combined forces of Thompsons of Prudhoe and PDC were up in Newcastle, bringing Doon, a tower block in the centre of Toon. My Geordie accent needs some work, I grant you, but this is how they did it.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fire now! Fire now!
Yeah, fantastic work from the Sky Revolutions team, but also from everybody involved in that explosive demolition. Pretty tight around there. Roads and other properties really, really well performed. And congratulations to everyone involved. Nice blowdown, says Mick. Yeah, I totally agree. Going back to the question of the day, Chris Ford is offering chocolate orange cake with cream. Unfortunately, I like all cake. I genuinely don't do chocolate and orange together. Everyone gets excited around about Christmas time about a Terry's chocolate orange. Not me. Not me at all. Not. Chocolate, yes. Orange, yes. Chocolate orange, no thank you. Jim Turner is going for gingerbread man or shortbread. Have to be a cake. An elephant's foot or a cream horn. I'm familiar with a cream horn. What in the name of all that is holy is an elephant's foot? Never heard of one. Is this something from your part of the world? I've never heard of an elephant's foot. Is it something that we have down here that we call something else? Be interested to know. I'm going to go back to the mystery machine because we've had more guesses. We've got Ken Hatcher going for a Priestman. It's not. Jim Turner going for a Sani 13-tonner. It's not. Chris Ford going for the 345 rather from Cat. It's not. Ken Hatcher going for the Ford. It's not one of those either. Gary Muirhead going for the Yanmar Vio 80. It's not one of those. Ken Hatcher saying nice drop on the Hexham House up in Newcastle. And Gary Muirhead saying, fantastic company, Thompson. So, yeah, I totally agree. So, we'll come back to that in just a moment because we've got this. Can you get tipsy cake down south? Never heard of it. Jim Turner is saying that an elephant's foot is also called a bobby's foot. Never heard of one of those either. Chris Ford saying if it's an elephant's foot cake, it has to be birds. I'm almost tempted to get in the car and drive up towards sort of Derby, Nottingham way to find out what, in the name of God, an elephant's foot cake is. Jim Turner says, if a sit-down meal, apple pie or crumble, double or clotted cream. I have to say, apple crumble is one of the. It's like the high point of human development, if you ask me. Chris Ford, going back to the Mystery Machine, reckons it could be a Mitsubishi 140. You're in kind of the right age range, but you're not right. And it's a bit closer to home. It's not close to home, but it's a bit closer to home. So keep the guesses coming in. As I say, not a current machine. Nobody's got the right make yet. There's a bit of me that'll be quite surprised if you do get the right make, actually, but we shall keep going. We're going all electric in a minute with the fine folks at Weidemann, so stand by your beds. I'll be back after this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Now, I've gone for this film partly because, it's Weidemann, which is good. It's electric, which is also good, but it's also quite short. It's only a minute and a half, and I'm using a minute and a half video because the video that we've got after this is from Bell. It basically charts the rise and the history of Bell, the ADT maker. They make some other stuff as well, which you're about to find out. But that film is about 9 minutes long, which is a much longer than our usual fare, but I watched it, thought it was really good. So we'll do the Weidemann, then we'll do the Bell. Here we go. Conversation has gone slightly off kilter again. Our friend Mick says there's a lot of strange stuff up past Watford, Mark. I still like an oat cake now and again. Now, oat cakes. I'm not entirely sure what oat cake you're referring to, but I once had breakfast at the JCB golf course, and on the menu was a Staffordshire oat cake. I thought, wow. Staffordshire oat cake with sausage? That sounds right up my street. Didn't like that at all. Like a kind of an oaty pancake with cheese and sausage. Sausage was fine. Cheese was fine. The oat cake, not much. Not much at all. Now, Jim Turner, by way of explanation, says an elephant's foot is a big round cream cake with chocolate on top. Very light, fluffy cake stuff. A bit like an eclair, but lighter. Now, that does sound like it's up my street, indeed. Gary Muirhead, we've got a Glasgow cake called a Greedy Bee, a large cream cake with apple, lots of cream and icing. Yum, yum. You definitely feel like a greedy bee after one of those. anything with apple. There's a bit of a divide in the Anthony household. There's half the house that like all of the desserts that are lemon meringue pie, lemon drizzle cake, lemon tart, all of that sort of thing. The other half, there's quite a bit of chocolate, but quite a lot of apple, and I'm on the side of apple all day long. Jim Turner says an elephant's cake rather. Yes, Chris, definitely one from birds. Jim says, you mean an oaty cake, savoury pancake? Apparently I do. Yes, not a fan. Not a fan at all. I was going to say that maybe the one that I had at the JCB factory wasn't, or the JCB golf course wasn't up to much. I'd be very surprised. The food at JCB is always phenomenal. Now, going back to our mystery machine, Chris Ford has come up with that. He reckons an O&K RH9. Now, it's not. It's not an O&K at all. But I will tell you, you're in the right country. You're in the right country. Keep the guesses coming in. There's a bit more to be going on with. Look, it's on wheels. Hope that narrows it down a little bit for you. Now, I did say that next film is quite a long one. It is, but it does chart the entire history of a very, very big manufacturer. We'll be back after this. Going back to the mystery machine, Gary is offering us the Sumitomo SH120. I'm telling you now, geographically, you're an absolute mile away. Chris Ford was way, way closer. Jim Turner is going for a Hanamag. Again, right country, wrong manufacturer. Keep those guesses coming. Now, you could be mistaken. To my mind, Bell is a fairly recent addition to the industry. You know, I'd probably go back with Bell 20, 25 years or so. Oh, they've been around a lot longer than that. I'm also slightly wrong in the fact that I tend to pigeonhole them as purely ADTs. There's more to Bell than meets the eye. 9 minutes, sit back, pour yourself a cup of coffee, and let the history of Bell wash over your ear holes and your eyeballs.
The story of Bell Equipment is an inspirational account of how a small engineering and agricultural equipment repair service in northern KwaZulu-Natal has become a South African manufacturing icon and a recognized global leader in the heavy equipment business. The story's central character is Irvin Bell, a fitter and turner who had a passion for all things mechanical. Irvin had a remarkable ability to listen to his customers and transform their needs into innovative machine solutions. He founded the company in 1954, and his inquiring mind and innovative spirit live on as a legacy to the company. His strong sense of family, teamwork, and integrity are values that Bell Equipment continues to live by and are the cornerstone of the company's success. The company's first defining moment came in the early 1960s when Irvin designed a hydraulic three-wheeled cane loader that revolutionized the cane industry as a world first in simple, low-cost mechanical cane loading. Later joined by Irvin's sons, Peter, Gary, and Paul, Bell Equipment ventured into mass production of its machines and has grown into a global company with over 40,000 machines operating in more than 80 countries. Supporting this growth internationally is a network of Bell subsidiaries and an extensive dealer network. Irvin Bell's values live on today through a committed family of Bell employees worldwide who are proud of Bell Equipment's South African roots. Its strong, reliable machines built tough for Africa's harsh conditions and its superior product support network. Our social-economic development activities are focused on the communities in which we operate, and so we invest in the key areas of education, job creation, environmental preservation issues, health and HIV/AIDS, crime prevention, and uplifting the poorest sector of the community. We also support government's plans to grow the economy and create decent jobs by developing local suppliers and continuously looking at ways to improve the local content of our products. Sound corporate governance and following the stringent ISO 9001 best practices to deliver world-class quality in all its products and services are key to the company's continued sustainability. Our vision to offer customers a one-stop shop for equipment solutions is achieved through strategic alliances with some of the world's most respected and well-recognized heavy equipment brands. JCB, Kobelco, and Finlay. Bell Equipment's quality product range covers a variety of industries: mining, construction, road infrastructure, agriculture, forestry, quarrying, crushing and screening, underground mining, and other special applications. In each instance, the company is driven by its philosophy to provide its customers with the lowest cost per ton equipment solution to maximize productivity and operating efficiency. Through our in-house design capacity, we are able to continue Irvin's approach of listening to customers and providing innovative solutions. This ensures that our machines are robust and purpose-built to suit the ever-changing needs of the market. Every part of the manufacturing process, from fabrication and welding to final assembly, takes place at the company's world-class factory facilities. Fitted with state-of-the-art equipment, the factory follows stringent quality systems, and finished products are quality checked using the latest procedures and technology. Safety is integrated into our products and processes. A risk assessment philosophy is practiced both in the factory and in the design of our products, which integrate class-leading safety features. Bell machines are distributed throughout Africa and shipped to all corners of the world. But this is only half of our story. Our strong, reliable support is part of our strength in achieving global success with our strong, reliable machines. Apart from offering unrivaled technical backup, often in remote locations, we also provide comprehensive training packages to ensure that machine operators and technical staff are fully competent and confident to ensure maximum productivity and efficiency from their Bell machines. Whether it's planned or unexpected maintenance, our promise is to provide backup whenever and wherever it is needed. Our global logistics center in Johannesburg is at the heart of this promise. A sophisticated modern warehousing center that never sleeps to ensure the dependable supply of genuine Bell parts across the globe. In order to provide our Northern Hemisphere customers with the same promise, our European Logistics Center in Elsfeld, Germany is equally equipped to deliver. Coupled with this delivery, our manufacturing plant in Eisenach-Kindl, Germany produces machines to the same high-quality standard that our customers have become accustomed to. Bell is focused as a manufacturer on providing solutions throughout the life cycle of our machines, assuring customers that whatever the choice, new, used or refurbished, satisfaction, good value and affordable solutions are guaranteed. Bell Lubricants, a tailor-made range of greases and oils for all your machines. Bell Fleetmatic, our own satellite fleet management system. Bell Extended Warranty, giving customers peace of mind. Bell Pre-Owned Machines, creating opportunities for those entering the industry. Bell Finance, providing customized finance solutions. Bell Reman, offering quality remanufactured components restored to original factory specs. And an extensive collection of product manuals and application advice. With a range of over 150 products, Bell Equipment is here to meet your needs. Into the future, we will continue to be driven by technological innovation and the core values upon which this company was founded to focus on ways to unearth even greater value for all our stakeholders. Join us in this exciting journey. Choose Bell Equipment and become part of our family.
Yeah, more to Bell than meets the eye, more than just ADTs. Obviously, you saw in that film Helicopter. When Bell, I don't know if it was when they first arrived, but certainly within the first couple of years of them arriving here in the UK and setting up shop up near, I think they were in Staffordshire, up near JCB, on the way to JCB in actual fact, well, certainly the way that I drive it, they actually had their own helicopter for moving parts around the country. Don't know if that's still the case. I very much doubt it. But yeah, they borrowed what they'd learned in South Africa, which obviously big expanse of land, and they tried to replicate it here. Don't know whatever happened to that, but if anyone knows, please let me know. Now, going back to our mystery machine, which currently looks like this, Jim Turner reckons it could be a Hanamag. No, it's not. An Edda. No, it's not one of those either. Gary Muirhead is going for the Ackerman H7MC. It's not. Gary also asked, is John Deere still involved with Bell? Apparently not. Apparently that tie-up ended in 2023, January 2023. I looked it up while you were doing all of that. Mick says, I've got a friend in Cape Town. He swears by Bell. Just let me take that away for just a moment. We're talking about elephant's feet? I don't know. Mick says, Jim, I'm an East End boy who lived in Stoke for a while, still trying to get over being called Duck, let alone Oti. Yeah, Duck. They're big on Duck up that way. Jim Turner says, everyone is Duck or Love. It's much easier than remembering people's names. I do get some funny looks in other parts of the country and the world. Yeah. I honestly remember the first time I was called Me Duck, and it's like, Did I just hear that right? Apparently it was. Jim Turner says, is this the video you use when you get caught off with an emergency Tom Deere? No, it's not. No, it's not. I just thought it was a really good film. It's brand spanking new, actually. I didn't have it in reserve just in case, I promise you. Mick says, best part, Jim, I used to sit with the naughty 40s with a Millwall shirt on. They left me alone thinking I was a mad southerner. Just, I don't know if you saw this, Mick. Obviously, there's been the furore about what's the fella's name? Baldy. Greg Wallace over the weekend. And apparently there is a photograph of him doing the rounds without his shirt on. Apparently he's in pretty good nick for a man of his age. But Danny Baker, who is basically my broadcasting hero, was saying he wishes he'd put his shirt back on because apparently on his chest he has a Millwall badge and he's giving Millwall a bad name. As if they need any help in that department. Gary Muirhead says, wow, never thought for 1 minute Bell Equipment was so big. I tip my hat to you too. Yeah, I did. You like the hat, by the way? Yeah. We're going very sort of Peaky Blinderish at the moment. I don't know quite what's going on. I wore one, liked it, liked the way it looked, so I already own some more, to be perfectly honest, but yeah, that's where we are today. I've got one more film for you, and then I am going to flip over to all things way more serious. We've just done the history of Bell. We're also going to do a bit more of a history lesson in just a moment. We're going to be doing 50 years of skid steers with John Deere, which kind of rhymes. Back
Since
after
the
this.
finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
This is a smaller side. I can't read books by Irvine Welsh, the guy that wrote Train Spotting and stuff, because they are written in the vernacular. They're actually written with a Glaswegian accent, and I find it really, really hard to tune my brain into what he's saying. This, however, from Mick, this just sounds like my dad. God, fuck me. All I need to know. Just speaking about Danny Baker. As I say, he is my broadcasting idol because he has only ever been Danny Baker. He's never been posh, never been, he just does what he does, but does it very well. Watching a bunch of his stuff on YouTube over the weekend, and apparently he received, in one instance, a very bad review in one of the newspapers, and his dad saw it, and his dad said, "Here, boy, what are you going to do about this then?" And Danny Baker said, "Nothing. It's just a review. I don't care." And Danny Baker's dad said to him, "That's the trouble with your business. Not enough right-handers. If somebody said that to me down the docks, they'd be in the fucking drink." And in my head, it was said just as my dad would have said it. Yes, thank you very much indeed for Danny Baker and his dad, Spud. Nobody's got the mystery machine. We've got one more video to play you. I'm going to show you a smidge more. There you are. We've got, as I say, one more video to play you, which is 50 years of skid steers from John Deere, which is coming up right about, now. Not been in it quite as long as Bobcat, but yeah, 50 years in skid steers. I love the way that rhymes. Going back to Danny Baker, bizarrely. Love that series written by Danny Baker about when he was a kid. It was called From the Cradle to the Grave. And yes, as Jim rightly points out, his dad Spud was rightly played by Peter Kay. Apparently they're big mates. And if anybody's ever heard it, the theme tune to that was written specifically for it by the band Squeeze. One of the unsung heroes of British music, in my opinion. Yeah, I personally believe Chris Difford and Glenn Tilbrook, every bit as good as Lennon and McCartney, just not as highly rated, but that's just me. Mick says, I think I've asked this before, why hasn't Deere really pushed for the UK market? I think traditionally they've always had a very strong domestic market over in the States, but I also think that some of their key products, for example, the excavators, obviously we've got a very mature excavator market here. We've also got some domestic manufacturers, the likes of JCB. When you think about their skid steers, obviously everybody's playing catch up with Bobcat. I just wonder if they've got enough to come to the UK and really make a big enough difference. Because obviously bringing their product line would require the appointment of dealers, bringing stock in and everything else. I just wonder if maybe they've looked at it and decided not enough there. And obviously, we've seen a lot of the Chinese manufacturers of late making inroads, but they've done so apparently on the back of very, very big discounts. Can the Americans offer the same? I wonder. Footy was enjoying the drumming. Chris Ford reckons that our mystery machine could be an Atlas 1302. Mick agrees. Squeeze, fantastic band. Yes, they most certainly are. Just trying to remember. The one that they did, Tempted, with Paul Carrick on vocals, absolutely fantastic. And incidentally, I realise everyone probably knows that Paul Carrick does the main singing on that song, but apparently, if you listen very carefully, one of the people doing backing vocals on that, none other than Elvis Costello. He also produced the song, but they're just stuff, Now, our friend Dan Cullen had started work on a Komatsu 130. He's now been upgraded to a brand spanking new 360 Komatsu. Awesome stuff. And he's going to be watching on Catch Up tonight. Nobody has got our mystery machine, so I will tell you right now, it is one of those. That right there is a Zeppelin ZM13, all the way from Germany. Nobody got it. So I am going to claim the 3 points myself and get I'm off to a winning start. Right. I'll tell you more in just a moment, but I'm going to round this up. That's the main part of the morning show done and dusted. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second. Then I'm going to leap gazelle-like into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around, do please try to stay safe if you possibly can. Look after yourself, your family, friends, and your colleagues, and I hope to see you again very soon. Very quick reminder, show today, obviously, show tomorrow, as usual. No show Wednesday, no show Thursday, because I shall be in the Netherlands on a top secret mission, another top secret mission. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I will be back with my morning monologue, the long delayed morning monologue, after this. Yeah, before I get into today's morning monologue, I wanted to give you a bit of background. I actually wrote this a few weeks ago, and I did what I always do. I tend to write these things, stick them away, and then revisit them, a day, 2 days later, and have a good read, basically looking for mistakes and making sure that I'm happy with the content. And on this occasion, I just felt it was a bit too dark, a bit too graphic, maybe. So I parked it and kind of decided that's where it's going to stay. I was going to draw a veil over it and just pretend it never happened. However, over the weekend, I received a message from somebody watching on LinkedIn, all the way from Canada, and it came from someone that had lost a loved one in a demolition accident. They thanked me for an article that I wrote recently about site fatalities and what have you, and they ended with the message, "Please keep banging the drum on this." So, with those words ringing in my ears, I decided to revisit that monologue that I wrote, as I say, a couple of weeks ago. And I've decided to deliver it, regardless of just how dark it might appear. As someone once said, and while I was messing around with that bell film, I actually went and had a look. There was an expression: if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. I'd heard the expression before, didn't know where it came from. Malcolm X, apparently. So yes, here's me being all Malcolm X. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So this is today's morning monologue. Let me paint you a picture. I'd like you to imagine a large auditorium or a conference room. You're in a theatre, perhaps. Behind you is a well-lit stage upon which there is a single microphone on a stand. In front of you is a packed auditorium with no seat left unsold or unoccupied. There's an aisle that runs from the stage to the back of the auditorium. Either side of that aisle are seats in rows of 12. 12 on the left of the aisle, 12 on the right. In total, there are 20 rows extending to the back of the auditorium. Now imagine that the front 2 rows on both sides of that aisle are dead. 48 people, men and women, dead in their seats. That's an underrepresentation of the number of people killed on demolition and construction sites in 2023, 2024. I'll do that again, just to be clear. That is an underrepresentation of the number of people killed on demolition sites in one more time. I really want to get this right. That is an underrepresentation of the number of people killed in site accidents in demolition and construction in 2023 and 2024. Shocking, right? Now, I'd like you to imagine that it's not just the front 2 rows that are dead. It is, in fact, the entire auditorium. 20 rows of 12 seats to the left, 20 rows of 12 seats to the right. All of them dead. That is an underrepresentation of construction workers that died by suicide in a single year, according to the latest set of figures. It's more than 500 people. Can you imagine that? Shocking. I'd like you to use your imagination one more time. I'd like you to imagine that this auditorium filled with dead people is not a standalone building. It's part of a conference centre. There are 9 more auditoriums exactly the same as this one. Each contains 20 rows of 12 seats to the left of the aisle, 20 rows of 12 seats to the right. And every single occupant of a seat in all 10 conference rooms is also dead. That is an underrepresentation of the number of people killed each year by exposure to asbestos. And if you're not shocked now, then maybe you're beyond shocking. I said that was the last time I needed you to use your imagination. I lied. I'd now like you to imagine that there's a person standing on the stage in front of all these dead people. They're wearing a sharp suit, shirt, and a tie, and an expensive-looking pair of shoes. And they are very much alive. They're a representative of a major demolition or construction company, or maybe they're a representative of an industry trade body. And they're here to deliver an insightful presentation on their commitment to health and safety. They have a PowerPoint presentation that explains the multitude of campaigns and initiatives they've implemented to make their sites, their company, and their industry safer for everyone. You can tell this is a speech they've delivered dozens of times because although he's carrying sheaths of paper, he never once consults his notes. His speech ends with a flourish. It's uplifting and inspiring. But where there should be applause, a standing ovation even, there's silence. There's silence because while the sharp-suited man on the stage was talking about risk management and site safety, his audience was dead. Every person in every seat in every one of the 10 conference rooms deceased. And even though his speech was met with a deafening silence, the man on stage walks off, smugly satisfied with a speech and a presentation well delivered. The speaker returns to his dressing room. As he sips from a bottle of water kindly provided by the conference organisers, he looks out the window. There's a queue of people already at the turnstiles for his next show. The queue extends way into the distance, While he doesn't actually bother to count them, he reckons there's about 5,500 people lined up to take the newly vacated seats. All of them are eager for the show to start. None of them knows what lies in wait for them. And so begins another year in the demolition and construction world. That is the rant itself, or the monologue, if you prefer. I'd like to offer you some additional context. Obviously, that was a work of fiction. There is no auditorium filled with dead people. But think about this. Each year, there are multiple conferences within demolition and construction. There's multiple seminars, awards. And each year, companies that have been involved in fatal accidents are nominated and shortlisted for awards. There's another thing I'd like to show you when I can bring it up on the screen. Where is it? Here. There you are. This is from the Telegraph. Attendees horrified, note that word horrified, after Construction Awards hires models in skin-tight high-vis costumes. On the Tools boss issues public apology following public outcry over regressive event. A construction industry event has sparked a sexism row after hiring female performers in skin-tight, builder-themed outfits for an award show. Faye Allen, a chartered quantity surveyor, says she was contacted by horrified, there's that word again, horrified attendees of the event, including one woman who literally walked into a crotch. Okay? Now, that's from the Telegraph, okay? As I've just said, according to one woman, she was horrified by what she saw. Now, do I think that kind of imagery has a place in the construction industry of today? No. Is that sending the right message to the women we're so keen to attract to the industry? No. Should the organisers know better? Yeah. But where is the horror about the number of people killed on sites each year? Where's the horror over the levels of suicide in the sector? Where's the horror over the deaths from exposure to asbestos? And perhaps most of all, where are the newspaper headlines about suicide, demolition and construction fatalities, asbestos? Where are they? So there's my thought for the day. Mick says you just made a good analogy to something that's all too conveniently left behind or swept under the carpet. Listen, I don't want to single people out, but we had the World Demolition Awards back in... was it September, October? I can't actually remember. And the keynote speaker at that event was Mark Coleman, who is head of Coleman & Co, or what used to be Coleman & Company, I think now Coleman Group or whatever. Coleman & Company, and I'll say hand on heart right now, I'd love for them to be found completely innocent and without charge over Didcot. But the Didcot investigation is still ongoing, and Coleman & Company were the demolition contractor involved at the time. Now, I guess you might argue that nearly 9 years on, maybe we should all be getting on with our lives. Maybe Mark Coleman should be allowed to get on with his life because he has had that hanging over him for, as I say, the best part of 9 years. Is that an appropriate choice for a World Demolition Awards? I've met Mark Coleman on a number of occasions. He's not a fan of mine. I think he's a very good demolition contractor. But whether he volunteered his services or whether he was approached and accepted, bearing in mind the ongoing investigation, would you be doing that? Would you be doing that? And this is not unique. There was, I think it was last year's or maybe earlier this year's, there was a health and safety award category within the Construction News Specialist Awards. And one of those on the original list, they didn't actually make it into the final round as far as I remember, was the company that had been in charge of the demolition at Redcar, in which 2 people were killed. I don't know how you have the nerve to do that, to be perfectly honest with you. It's a bit like your man Greg Wallace turning up to do a speech at a female empowerment conference this week, isn't it? Do you not think? And I wonder about our focus as an industry. And I realise there's money to be made in conferences and exhibitions and seminars and awards. Big money. You know, we're talking tens, hundreds of thousands of pounds to be made on, you know. I would imagine that there are certainly some publishing companies that are effectively propped up by, or financially propped up by their awards and their conferences. But if you are genuinely trying to showcase the best of an industry, be it in a seminar setting, a conference setting, or more specifically an award setting, should somebody not be sitting down and saying, not this year, the timing on that, the visuals on that, the optics as they refer to it, that's not great. You know, and I'll go back to this. You know, am I mortally offended by a couple of girls with their skin tight PPE? Not really. I don't give a toss. I mean, would I have come away from that thinking that's I'm deeply offended? No, I wouldn't. But I think what is offensive to me is the fact that is sufficient for major newspaper coverage and newspaper headlines when 50 demolition and construction deaths in a year isn't, when 500 plus suicides isn't, and when 5,000 asbestos deaths isn't. That to me just feels like the world has got its priorities wrong. Jim says, suicide is one I find hard to pin on the industry. Unless someone writes a note saying I'm offing myself purely because of the way I'm being treated at work, because usually suicide is built up of problems that come to a head. And if our industry is part of the problem, then that person needs to walk away from it as they aren't enjoying it anymore. It's a fair point, and I realise it's a point that's made on a fairly regular basis in response to the levels of suicide. But you can only measure what you can measure, and one of the things that stands out with this is that our industry, construction, never mind the 500, although I do mind the 500 enormously, but never mind the 500. Where the real proof comes is that is 4 times, or almost 4 times, the national average. So that's more than in retail, more than in factories, more than in pharmaceuticals, more than in mining. So there is. You'd have to say there is a connection. And please don't let's lose sight of the fact that there is actual suicide taking place on site. You know, we had Steve Kerslake of Construction Sport on this show maybe 18 months ago now. And he was talking about a guy that had basically cut his own throat on site. Now, my own personal take on suicide, having seen it very, very up close and very, very personally, my feeling is that you are suffering from a temporary mental illness that causes you to take that ultimate step. But even allowing for that, are you getting up, getting on a bus or a train or getting in your car, driving to work, putting on your PPE, starting work, and then go and find yourself a Stanley knife and cutting your own throat? Or is there something within your work environment that proved to be the ultimate trigger? In truth, I'm not entirely sure the facts and the figures necessarily matter, but the very fact that we've got 4 times or more, almost 4 times the national average within construction, that's enough. Even if it's not enough for seminars to be rethought and awards to be rethought, it should be enough for national newspapers to have a bit of an outcry. It should be enough for us as an industry to stop and to take stock. But just the same as we saw a gradual decline in the number of site fatalities over the course of a decade. Post-COVID, they've started going back up again. So where is the response? They were up last year, so that's more than a year ago, and they're up again this year. Where is the response? Where is the stepping up of training? Where is the industry response to that? Mick says, spoke to a mate of mine who still works for Coleman's. He said Mark is no longer the man he was. He said he is broken, but will not show it. But it shows to all who know him on the firm. I agree with what you're saying. I'm not sticking up for Mark, but you know as well as I do, he's not to blame completely. The firm as a whole are dealing with something no one wanted. Yeah. I'd like to be absolutely clear here. I mentioned this last week. I have a personal issue with the way in which corporate manslaughter works. There are extenuating circumstances with the whole Didcot thing, all of which will come out in the fullness of time, and I'm not going to get into them right here because I can't be seen to be prejudicing any ongoing inquiry. So that's all I will say on that. What I would say is that Mark Coleman was one step removed. You know, I don't know how many people were working on Didcot. It was a vast site. You know, was there 100 people there? Was there 200 people? I don't know. How many of those did Mark Coleman personally employ? Probably not that many. How many times did Mark Coleman visit Didcot? Probably not that many. And yet, you know, there is every possibility if the court findings go in the wrong direction, it could be him facing a jail term, which, as I say, I don't believe is necessarily the way these things. I realise that the blame needs to land someone, but should it land with somebody that's hardly met any of the team and hardly ever set foot on the site? I have a bit of an issue with that. But even allowing for that, should you be standing at a world demolition event and holding court? And never mind my feelings on it, never mind your feelings on it, Mick, never mind the feelings of those in the audience. What about the families of the 4 guys that were killed at Didcot? You know, they wake up each morning trying to get through their lives without their loved ones. And Mick, I know your own personal take on this. You're trying to get through another year, another Christmas, another birthday, or whatever it might be, without your loved ones who tragically never returned from Didcot. And there on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever it might be, is the head of the company that was in charge of that demolition project being the keynote speaker at a World Demolition Awards. How does that make you feel? Now, and I want to be clear. As it stands at the moment, there is no evidence to suggest that Coleman and Company were responsible. There's no evidence whatsoever to suggest that Mark Coleman himself was responsible. There's none of that whatsoever. But would you not be keen to keep your powder dry until everything is settled? All of which I think is kind of a distraction. It's kind of a distraction. There was a meeting of the National Federation of Demolition Contractors, London and Southern Region, on, I think it was Friday last week. Was there any talk of people being killed? Or was everyone patting each other on the back about a job well done? There will be an Institute of Demolition Engineers event in Leeds in February. There'll be guest speakers literally from across the globe. Will anybody be standing up and talking for the workers that have lost their lives over the past year, 2 years? There'll be another World Demolition Awards. There'll be another Construction News Specialist Awards. There'll be countless seminars and conferences and webinars and all of that. And the industry has become very, very good at patting itself on the back. it gives itself awards and trophies and medals and stuff. Meanwhile, and I realise that not all the 5,000 people that have been killed by asbestos-related diseases were in construction and demolition. I need to make that clear. But 500 plus through suicide, 50 plus through site accidents. So even if you discount, which I don't think you should, but even if you completely discount the whole asbestos side of things, 550 people dead in a single year, and you're in a swanky hotel patting yourself on the back on a job well done. Jim Turner says, I can tell plenty of folk on site are in the wrong job. They just don't have the aptitude for the industry. Almost everyone on our gang, almost 8 of us, are happy, content, and enjoy their job. But plenty hate Monday mornings. They need to get out and try Monday mornings. But plenty hate Monday mornings. They need to get out and try something else. So I can't blame the industry, just people in the wrong jobs that are fighting their feelings. Which is, it's a fair comment. It is a fair comment. To which I would say this. There are exceptions. There are exceptions on who makes it in construction and demolition. But let's be absolutely honest about this. For a lot of people that are working in the demolition and construction industry, within the trades, the trades are basically their last resort. I'm not saying that's true of everyone. There are some really, really fucking smart people working in the trades. Don't get me wrong. I'm not tarring everyone with the same brush. But for a lot of people that weren't particularly good at school, not particularly academic, they leave school, or in some cases they leave higher education, and they basically have 3 choices. Choice number 1 is long-term unemployment. Choice number 2 is join the armed services, where you'll be shot at. And choice number 3 is a job in the trades. So, Jim, I take on board everything you say about people having a choice. I don't believe that everyone does have a choice. And furthermore, I also think that we as an industry tend to attract more than our fair share of people that don't have a choice. We are literally, in many instances, the safety net. We are the industry of the last resort. Mick says, I agree, mate, but it's and it's a big but, till we find out what the outcome is, we can't point the finger at one person. Something went very wrong at Didcot, and after 8 years, no one has given an answer. Of course, I feel for the families. I knew the blokes, maybe not the relations, but I feel for them. But we cannot drag or get pissed off with someone till it's all over and done with. No, I totally agree. But it's the optics of it. The optics of it. It's take Coleman and Company completely out of the picture, because that is an ongoing thing. Okay, but there are other instances, and I realise the benefit of having, winning an award and the publicity that goes with it. And maybe I'm just a big soft git. But if I was in any way linked to the death of somebody, I am not putting myself forward for an award, for a trophy, for a medal, for a commendation, for a keynote speaker slot. I believe it is utterly inappropriate to do that. Now, if the 9th anniversary of Didcot rolls around, let's go back to that. The 9th anniversary rolls around, 23rd of February 2025. And the police come out and they say, we've found the smoking gun, nothing to do with Coleman's whatsoever. They were completely innocent. The design of the building was an absolute fucking shit show, and, that they are exonerated to a man. fill your boots, enter every award you can, be all over the press, stand up on national television and tell people about how miserable your life has been for the last 9 years, with that sword of Damocles hanging over you that has now been removed. You are now exonerated and completely innocent. But until that happens, and again, this is just me, I don't think there's much wrong with a bit of a low profile. I don't want to use him as an example because I don't know the bloke, but, this Greg Wallace thing, I don't think he's helped himself with some of the statements he's made about middle-aged women of a certain age and stuff like that. If there were if there was an awards next week for female empowerment, would he be a good choice for the keynote speaker? Would he really? Mick says, Mark, no one in the NFTC idea or any owner of a company gives a fuck about the blokes on the ground. The old boys club is still alive. As long as they get their coffers filled, they just don't care. Yeah. And it's very easy for me to sit here because I am I'm more than one step removed from all of this. But I just find myself, when it comes to fatalities and not so much suicide, because I'm with Jim Turner. You can't, can I specifically say that 517 people took their own lives? They all worked in construction, and every one of them was led to that final decision by construction? No, I can't. I can't say that hand on heart. But even with that, one per week, we're killing men and women on demolition and construction sites in what is supposedly a professional, enlightened, modern, professional industry. How can we pat ourselves on the back knowing that is still the case? We look back at the number of men that were killed underground in mining, and you look at that and you kind of cringe, like, did we really require men to work in those conditions? What were we thinking? And then you go back a little bit further, and we used to send children up chimneys to sweep the chimneys, and we look back at that and think to ourselves, how did we allow that to happen? How did we think that was acceptable? 51 people dying on demolition and construction sites in a year. I'll tell you now, that was only last year. I'm telling you now, that is not acceptable. It is not acceptable in any way, shape or form. Not in an industry that prides itself and shouts from the rooftops about its health and safety initiatives and its health and safety campaigns. And how could you do that when the evidence so clearly proves that you're just saying words? Jim says, I'm exactly that non-academic. Apparently, I'm the same. I'm exactly that non-academic person. That didn't bother with school. Next to no qualifications, can spell, have a touch of the tism, but I know I'm in just the right job for me because I find it so easy and enjoyable. That's the secret to all aspects of life. Just do what makes you happy and don't fight your feelings. Don't fight your feelings is a good one. Yeah, I totally agree with that. But as I say, you have found your thing. You found your niche. You found your calling. But what if your calling is one thing, but your qualifications only allow you to do another thing? And I don't want to come across as all Wokerson here, but Jim, you're a big lad, plenty to say for yourself. You look like you can handle yourself and everything else, which is absolutely dandy. And I'm one of the things that attracted me to demolition and construction is the roughy, tufty nature of it, and the banter and the effing and the jeffing and all that kind of thing. Because that's kind of how I am. Not so much the roughy tufty. I'm a bit of a southern softy, but I like the effing and the jeffing, and I like the banter. But if you're not that way inclined, if you are a bit of a a shy, retiring person. Maybe that's one of the reasons you didn't do so well at school. You just found the whole of the school experience deeply uncomfortable, being in a competitive situation with other people. You were a bit of a loner and that kind of thing. And then you're thrown in at the deep end. Because you didn't get the qualifications, you're now thrown into the deep end with other construction workers, most of whom have been there a lot longer and have established a rapport on what they can and can't say. And the banter is flowing back and forth. And you land as a 16, 17-year-old who, as I say, is a bit shy, a bit retiring, not particularly forthcoming. That would be the most scary job in the world, I think. Jim goes on. We should trust our gut feelings more, as that's what's kept us as a species from becoming extinct. I fully realise I don't see the world like most people do. That's why I find other people so entertaining, as they're so very different. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Yeah, everyone is different. And again, I think that kind of impacts on your feelings towards fatalities and grief and bereavement and everything else. I think at the heart of what I was saying in that monologue is this notion of priorities. Should we be prioritizing our outrage towards that, which, we're not in the age of Benny Hill any longer. We are trying to encourage women into the industry, but is that worthy of being horrified? Is that horrific in comparison to the 51 people that were killed in site accidents? Is it horrific in comparison to 500 plus suicides in the sector? Is it horrific compared to the 5,000 deaths through asbestos-related diseases? If I have a magic wand, if I am granted a magic wand and I can fix one thing, I've got to tell you, that ain't top of my list. I don't think it's appropriate for this day and age. I don't believe it's horrific either. But if I could fix one thing, girls in scanty PPE is not top of my list of priorities. And in truth, I think it's not top of the industries either. It is, there's just so much fluff about the place. It's the same in my part of the industry. There are magazines, and I use the term advisedly, magazines in the industry who basically just reproduce, they're sent press releases, and so long as they're paid some advertising to go with it, they'll reproduce the press release. They don't read it, they don't understand it, they have no notion of its context in the wider world and stuff. But there's money in it, so they just report it. I don't believe that to be journalism, and I don't think they're doing anything for their industry apart from leeching off it. I think when you've got a public profile, which to a degree I have, I think some of the industry trade bodies have, I think some of the these conference and seminar organisers have. Get your priorities right. All of this fluff is meaningless. Should we not be focused on the real priorities, making sure everyone goes home safe at night? Mick says, I pulled the trigger when in the forces. Did I know if it was a kill shot? Of course I did. But when a shell fell on an enemy's position, I could only guess. Who then is the greatest killer? Or do we all take the blame, or just the trigger puller or the shell firer? And I think there's the point. I think that I hadn't thought of it like that, but I think that is precisely the point of what I was saying there. Regardless of individuals and individual cases, as an industry, we are one way or another continuing to allow people to die in our care. I'm not singling out individual people. I'm not singling out individual companies, because as far as I'm concerned, this is a systemic. This is a war scenario, to use Mick's point there. You know, the person ultimately responsible for you pulling the trigger or firing a shell that may have killed 5, 10, 20 people. Not you, not the person with their finger on the trigger of the launcher. I don't know guns, but it's not them. It's whoever put them in that position. Jim Turner says, school tried to teach lessons to too slow, kept expecting us all to write stuff down. I can't write properly or spell, but that's never stopped me learning. I needed information quicker than they could give it to me, so I got bored and stopped going. That's why I enjoy the job. It's ever-changing and involves constant problem-solving. Some folk just haven't got that ability. Yeah, but I think there's also the flip side of that. There are some people that are very, very good at, you know, if you tell them, we need you to go and dig a trench this wide, that deep, and keep going until we tell you to stop, or getting this dump truck, go to the face, get filled up, haul back, dump, do it again, and do it again, and do it again. Some people will love, it's not the mind-numbing, but that they will really appreciate the repetition that goes with that. Obviously, you're a problem-solving type of person, so I think you're always looking for other things to do. There's something for everyone. But if you are a fish out of water in construction or demolition, your drowning in oxygen will be very, very slow and very, very painful. I realise it's a weird analogy, but I know what I was meaning. Plenty of people, when a discussion comes up, people who have never been in that position look at me with a look of contempt. I'll be honest with you, I find it a really, really divisive subject. I've mentioned this before, but you remember when we first had all of the poppies on display up at Tower Bridge? I went up there with my wife just to see, well, we were in London anyway, but we went to see the spectacle. And there was a young guy in full uniform. I think he was probably an officer because he had a pretty smart hat on and stuff, but he was there with his wife and they were looking out and they were chatting. And when he turned around to walk away, the people around, and there were hundreds of people, just applauded the fact that he had served for his country. And I was one of them. I applauded as well and sent him on his way, because I think the people that are put in that position are doing, they're doing a terrible, terrible, terrible thing, but they're doing it for very, very right reasons. Those above them, and I mean specifically the government, I question whether they are. Things like the weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist. Should we be going to war with a nation that turned out to be innocent? And let's be honest, we almost certainly knew were innocent before we went to war with them. Now, what the soldiers did while they were there, as far as I'm concerned, is justified is the wrong answer, but I think they were right to do what they did in the context of what they'd been instructed to do. My question is, should they have been instructed to do it? That's where I sit on that. As far as I'm concerned, you know, I think anyone that serves their country deserves the utmost respect. Should we be asking anyone to serve their country and ultimately and possibly pay the ultimate sacrifice? No. No, as a species, we should have reached the point by now where we look at it and go, war? No. Wasn't it Edwin Starr? War? What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Yeah, that is my take on it. What is the point of war? But those that find themselves in a position of having to actually fight a war when they're at the front and they are genuinely fighting a war, I have nothing but respect for them. Don't believe they should be there, regardless of the circumstances, virtually. Mick says, we place blame on the person who is either at the top or who carry out the orders. No one gets it right. Did happen. We all need to know what happened. We can't blame until we know everything. Getting a bit upset here. I can still see the faces of the four, so I can see the faces of the blokes who didn't come home with me. Sorry, mate. My mind just racing to lay blame on someone. Should I tell you my ideal outcome with Didcot? My absolute ideal outcome is that after 9 years of investigation, Thames Valley Police and the Health and Safety Executive come back and they say there was an integral fault with the design of that boiler house that nobody could have foreseen. The collapse was a tragic accident, and we are going to pay compensation, big compensation, to the families of the 4 men that didn't make it home because of this unforeseen accident. And to really emphasize the word accident, this was unforeseen and unforeseeable. That would be my ideal outcome. I don't want Coleman and Company hauled over the coals. I don't want Mark Coleman hauled over the coals. I don't want any of his directors or his subordinates hauled over the coals. I'd love them to be exonerated. But even as that exoneration process is potentially taking place, I don't believe you should be standing up and... That's me preaching, just so you know. And I think it's inappropriate to do it. And I'm very keen to take Didcot out of the equation, because Didcot is an exception. It's taken an exceptionally long while to resolve itself, and that resolution still hasn't happened. But when you look around, this happens all the time. But there is a fatality. But while there's a fatality, I'm going to put myself forward for an award. Or while there's an investigation going on, I'm going to be the head of this or the head of that. Mick says, Mick says, stay safe, fellas. I think I need the company of the few mates I have left and a pint or two. Catch you all later. Have a good day, Mick. As I say, I didn't want to do that monologue. And the very fact that I wrote it a couple of weeks ago and parked it kind of goes to show what my feelings on it were. But when you actually hear directly from somebody who says, I lost a loved one in a demolition accident, please keep banging the drum. What do? Say, no, that's a bit dark for a Monday morning. That you can't. You can't ignore that. And I chose to not ignore that. So that's where we are. Chris Ford says, in this day and age, they would have you believe there is such a thing as an accident. The focus should be on what was the cause, not on who is to blame. I think you're right. Mick says, you had to, or they will be forgot. Yeah, that. Listen, there is every possibility that what I've said today will be criticised and analysed, and I'll be once again, as I'm often labelled, a disgrace to the industry. Given who says that on the most regular basis, I wear it as a badge of honour. I realise all of that, but I don't care. I'm not comparing myself. Trust me, I'm definitely not comparing myself. I don't know if you're aware, but I think it was this week, or it may be this week or last week, can't remember. It was the 40th anniversary of the recording of Do They Know It's Christmas by Band Aid. And there's been a bit of a furore, people trying to make mileage out of the 40th anniversary, talking about the fact that, it's now demeaning to Africa. We should have helped them stand on their own 2 feet. Ed Sheeran wanted to be distanced from the recording of a remix of the song. There's a rapper trying to make his name by saying it's too white and too woke and all that stuff. Bob Geldof went on the TV and said, I take on board all of that. And I'm fully accepting of that. In fact, I'm glad that they are outraged or they're upset or whatever, because it keeps the thing in the public spotlight. But ultimately, my answer is this. If Band Aid or the subsequent Live Aid concert saved one life, then I just negated your entire argument. Never mind the fact that, we should have helped Africa to stand on its own 2 feet. Never mind that pretty much all the recording artists that did it were white, and we were doing it for what was ostensibly a black problem. Never mind all of that. If we saved one life, then your argument doesn't count. And I believe that's where I sit on this. You know, people may describe me as a disgrace to the industry. It will not be the first time, and it certainly won't be the last. They could dismiss everything that I say as rabble-rousing and as inappropriate. But if I keep in the spotlight, if I keep in the public spotlight, Didcot, Redcar, or any of the other accidents that have befallen this industry, your comments about me being a disgrace, don't care. Not important. Irrelevant. Don't give a toss. Latest gents, before I kick the dog up the rear end, don't do that. Just put a scarf on him, put a lead round his neck, and lead him down the pub. Chris, an accident is what it is, not a planned event, something you write about. A write out of Rams, it's the definition of a word. Yeah, indeed. Gary Muirhead, we need to learn the lessons from Didcot. Yes, we do. We do. That's, blame is utterly. I mean, it's not even secondary. I've said it before, if you were to draw up a checklist of what to do in the event of a fatality, number one, look after the family of the bereaved person or persons. Number two, find out what actually happened to make sure it doesn't happen again. And then somewhere away in fourth or fifth place, blame someone, prosecute somebody, find somebody. But that is so far in the background. Look after the families. Make sure it doesn't happen again. And then, when we get around to it, maybe prosecute somebody. I think that pretty much covers it. Footy's been offered a job, which is good news. Keep us posted on that, Footy, would you? That's an hour and a half of this. One more show before I'm away for 2 days. So I'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m., bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, hopefully with something a little bit more cheery. I can't promise that because, frankly, I make it up as I go along, but I hope it's a little more cheery. And let's... Mick says, any chance for a happy monologue tomorrow? Yeah, why don't we go for that? Funnily enough, and I have to be honest about this, I get a lot of feedback about these monologues, a lot of feedback. The one that I got the most feedback about was when I was talking about it's about time that the Demolition received the respect it was due. Got a lot of people saying, well said, yes, we absolutely should, which is nice, and I like to show the industry in glowing terms, but it's sometimes hard to be positive when all around you. Jim says, this might come across as heartless, but the Live Aid thing has always been a maths question. As soon as you think of it as that, everyone will realise that money will never solve it. I don't know if you've seen it. There's a new documentary of sort of previously unseen footage of the recording of the Band-Aid song. And when you watch that, regardless of it being a maths question, regardless of Africa standing on its own 2 feet, regardless of long term and all the things, just as a very quick point, I saw Bob Geldof and Midju, the guys that wrote the song and brought the whole thing together on the TV over the weekend. And one of the points they were making was the first 6 months that the Live Aid thing was going on, everything was an emergency. It was sending medication and emergency food and blankets and that kind of thing. But after that, and bearing in mind it's been going on for 40 years, after that, everything was building wells and education and all of the kind of things. So I take all of that. I take all of that on board. But bearing in mind what it was, I think we now live in a post-Band-Aid, post-Live Aid world in which I think we're all a little more aware, maybe a little bit more cynical. But when you actually look at what happened, Bob Geldof watched the telly, saw Michael Burke's absolutely harrowing report from Ethiopia about the number of people that were starving. And Bob Geldof, God bless him, said, I'm not having that. I'm not having that. I want to do something. I need to do something. And thankfully he had a phone book with some pretty good names in it. like David Bowie and stuff, and he did a thing. And I think ultimately it came from the right place. Yes, it did become a maths question. Yes, you can question, the ultimate goal. Was it achieved? Did it make things better and everything else? But I think it came from the right place. Money should have gone towards agriculture and civil engineering investment. Then they might have been able to stand on their own feet. The problem with that, Jim, and you know that as well as I do, the only way that you do that through agricultural and civil engineering investment is to do it through the government. And African governments were, and many of them still are, as corrupt as all balls. You put your money into civil engineering investment, the president's got a new palace. They've just come back to me and I've been off hired. So a new job and a no job. Wow. Enough, people. That's an hour and 36 minutes, which even by my rambling standards is a very, very long one. I promise to be a bit shorter tomorrow. Again, I will remind you, no show Wednesday, no show Thursday. The new book, A Sight for Sore Eyes, is up for sale over at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news. If you'd like the link for that, I will put it in the WhatsApp group at some point. I'll also put it over on Demolition News as well, should you choose to buy a copy of the book. He's bearing in mind what Mick has just said about being a bit more cheery tomorrow. Is the book particularly happy? No, there's a lot of ranting in there, but it's pretty well written ranting, if I say so myself. If that sounds like the sort of thing that will get you to sleep at night or keep you awake raging, please go and get a copy. If you're a member, it's free. If you're a non-member, it's 10 quid. It's not a lot, is it, this day and age? A couple of cups of coffee down your local Starbucks. That's what I'm saying. Right, everybody go have a fantastic day. I'm off to do something else until tomorrow. Till then, have a good one. All the best.